grid for the second race of this meeting is decided on the finish order of race 1, so it finds Andy Booth on pole position, Kane Scott alongside of him, then it's John McIntyre and Mark Pedersen on row 2. Row 3 finds Paul Manuel alongside Angus Fogg, and then series points leader Wade Henshaw starting 7th again alongside Dean Perkins 8th. In 9th it's Andrew Fawcett alongside Andrew Anderson, Shane Drake starts 11th alongside Michael Tom 12th. In 13th it's Cameron McLean the Australian alongside Brady Kennett, 15th it's Hayden McKenzie and 16th Adam Brook. In 17th place Clark Proctor begins beside Kevin Williams with Dale Lambert starting alongside Craig Boot. In 21st it's Cam Hardy, 22nd Grant Shivers, Darren Henderson starting next, then David Parsons. In 25th it's returnee Phil Stewart alongside Pete Roberts, Mark Wooten starting 27th and Julia Hussif 28th. Martin Hicks starts 29th ahead of non-finishers from race 1, Jared Carlisle, Michael Wallace, Dean McMillan and at the back Mike Perro.
So it's a slightly depleted field out there today. We understand that as a result of the big 9-car collision yesterday, that there will be 3 cars not starting. They were on board with John McIntyre, one of the guys who has been in contention for the championship. That chance has really just about slipped away right now. He needs something to happen to both Booth and Henshaw for him to come through. This is Shane Drake on board with him in the power-built Falcon. He's down the order a little bit in the championship, about 6th place at the moment.
Yes, and in fact, starting from 11th we saw before. This is Wade Henshaw looking very focused as he gets ready to the start of this race. A lot of pressure on him in this particular race. He has to finish up the results in order to keep that championship alive.
Wouldn't you just be focused? He's got to be. We made it out with 2 races to run, this one and the final race of the year this afternoon later, that Wade Henshaw has a 53-point lead. He really has to finish 5th place or better if Andy Booth, his arch rival and the man second in the points, takes 2 wins. Well, Booth's had a clean sweep so far. Got the first race win earlier today, yesterday afternoon, and now really bidding to try to win this one as well and set himself to take back-to-back titles. That would be something coming from behind, as you'd say, over the last few rounds. Here's the Oryx team looking on, all their hopes pinned on that man in the number 1 car.
Wade Henshaw's team here looking very relaxed actually, in fact, but here's the pressure. These guys going over the top of Ford Mountain, getting ready for the start. Let's just hope they can get through turn 1. We saw a massive crash here yesterday.
So they're in the hands of Andy Booth, the man on the pole position, as he brings them down to face the starter. Looks pretty good, everything intact here. Kane Scott alongside of him. Very, very quick, those 2 cars yesterday, as was John McIntyre and Mark Pedersen on the second row of the grid. The all-Ford second row. Scott trying to get a bit of a jump on Booth as they come down to Repco turn 1. But no, Booth goes safely ahead. And cross your fingers, this is where the big crash was yesterday, and it all looks pretty good. Now that is something. In the Kiwi V8s, there's been carnage very frequently on the first lap. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We've still got the Holden hairpin to come, and we know that concertina's people up pretty badly.
I understand there was a bit of a truce amongst the drivers to get through those first 3 turns. Remembering these cars with a rolling start, taking extra speed into that first corner, the Repco corner.
Guess what? The truce is over. Johnny McIntyre and the blue and white Tracer Falcon coming down the outside of Kane Scott. He's got to now stay there. No, Scott just rubs down the outside of him, and in fact he's left himself open to Mark Pedersen and the United. Oh, and that's Andrew Fawcett getting totally spun around there, knocked right out of the way by somebody, sight unseen.
Of course, he was one of the ones caught up in that first corner incident yesterday. Did very well to get the car repaired and back in, so he's had a bit of a setback early in this race.
Yes, well, you don't want to be getting caught up in another one. Here's the fight for 2nd place. Really, Andy Booth, this is playing into his hands as these guys fight over 2nd. So whipping across the curb cam down at the Placemakers S's and onto the back straight. There is a big battle going on in this vicinity. Well, not so far actually off Andy Booth. Kane Scott drafting back up to him again now in the super cheap number 99.
Also Mark Pedersen doing well there to start with, ex-champion in this class. Has actually in fact won it 3 times before, and he's got the pressure on in 3rd place early in this race.
Well, that's certainly John McIntyre's been bumped back that place by Mark Pedersen, so he'll be kicking himself for that. He really wants to do big things here. Has now got Angus Fogg giving him a really hard time, and Wade Henshaw behind him. Here's the replay. This is the Fawcett incident, and you see more action in the background as well. Fawcett just gets shuttled straight out of the way, no problem.
Well, it looks like he actually did it himself, stepped on the rubber strips and just got it sideways and couldn't get it back again.
Bit of a gap opening up here between these first two, who are very, very fast. Look at Booth, got the car set up as he had it. Last year we got used to seeing him at the Pukekohe meeting, really sliding that car through that turn one, Repco turn. That is very quick. I mean, you've got to have absolute faith in your car setup.
Well, two things. He prefers to have the car set up like that, but also the big problem he has by actually getting it taily like that puts extra heat into the tyres, and that could count against him as he gets later part of this race.
So the championship contenders, we remind you, is the man in the number one car, Andy Booth, the reigning champion, and the man sitting back on the far right, back in 5th place, 6th place at the moment, Wade Henshaw. There he is, the car 28, Mike Perro Mortgage's car, has led this championship since he set a great platform for his series back in Pukekohe, back here in October.
This is Hayden McKenzie here in the pits. It looks like he may have been caught up in that incident with Fawcett down at the hairpin. But just looking at the timing monitor here, Wade Henshaw, currently the fastest man on the track, back in 6th place. So he's obviously on the move.
Another guy on the move, Kane Scott, trying to be on the move anyway, trying around the outside of Andy Booth. Yesterday, these guys had a sensational race with John McIntyre, who's got back up to 3rd place, past Mark Pedersen. So McIntyre on the move again, as you said, very, very quick. And yesterday, they were sideways around Repco turn. Hadn't seen that done. 3 wide and sideways. Now we're going on board with Wade Henshaw down the back straight as they go towards Holden Hairpin.
Yes, Wade Henshaw will be just thinking to himself, I've just got to stay clear here, but we talked about that yesterday as well. He has to really attack, but he's got himself a reasonable gap now on Paul Manuel and behind him in 7th.
Well, he might have found himself the right spot right there. He's got Angus Fogg in front of him. He can let him go. There's his boss. That's Mike Perro having his last race meeting, he says. He just announced yesterday at this meeting, got caught up in a crash, that start line crash. One of the 9 cars in that now out of this one.
Well, looking at that car, the crew have done a fantastic job. It looks like new again.
So he must be just down here at Repco turn 1. The yellow flag's waving right here. We're halfway through this race, and yes, the safety car is awaiting the field here. So how about this? Andy Booth has got it all to do again, and I reckon that Kane Scott has really come on strong since the opening moments of this race.
That's Julia Hussif. She's parked up, so obviously a problem with her car. Doesn't look like any damage at this point.
So the rescue tractor comes out to try to recover her car and get that clear of the track. Julia, the only woman in this field. 36 odd cars in the Parker Enzed V8 touring cars. She's had a bit of a struggled quite a bit during the series, but did come good at the Taupo meeting and got some pretty decent places there.
Yeah, she was in those early 20s, so for her that was a great performance. Really has mixed it with the boys at different stages through the season.
So Andy Booth is going to have to do this job completely again. McIntyre was pretty disappointed with missing pole the other day. His car is very, very quick. Here we are on board with John McIntyre as they go down towards the Holden hairpin.
Yes, Johnny McIntyre acquitted himself well in Australia this year, did the endurance races with the WPS team. I understand he's busy negotiating with some other teams to do the endurance series this year.
It's a great thing for the New Zealand V8 Touring Car Championship drivers to have to be at this V8 Supercar meeting. Of course, it's their big meeting of the year because of the fans who turn out en masse, attracted by the whole of this circus that comes to town with the V8 Supercars, not least of them this class, which has gathered a lot of attention this year. So many cars in it, so many good drivers, like you see Shane Drake right in the mid-pack there, finished just 11th yesterday, has had he's pretty disappointed with his first season in these cars, but a driver of his caliber, a former Trans Am champ, former Formula Ford champ, and it shows you, he has struggled to be right at the sharp end.
Well, it just, as you said before, it just comes back to the fact that there's such a high-quality field in this oh, look, there's Cameron McLean. He's obviously got a problem. He's our Aussie visitor. In fact, the only Aussie in the racing for the New Zealand V8 touring cars this weekend.
That's what I was going to say. The rumour is that he will be doing the whole of next season with this team. That's part of Team Ballistic, which has David Parsons and Clark Proctor in it. This is the car that Joe Farram, Speedway racer, was racing but sold the franchise off to the man you see talking there in the shades, Stephen Richards, out of the Bay of Plenty. He's bought that team and is very, very keen to have Cameron racing all season long next year. That'll be great.
Spoke to him yesterday, very impressed with these cars, having done quite a bit of time in a V8 Supercar. Obviously the difference between these cars, 400 horsepower in the New Zealand equivalent against the 650 horsepower of the Australian cars. Again, a more cost competitive formula here.
Here we are on board with Shane Drake, just getting the visor adjusted. Very, very hot at the moment, in 10th place in this race currently. He'll be wanting to move up from there, but he's got some pretty tough customers around him. Dean Perkins on the road just ahead, and Andy Anderson ahead of him in turn.
This is on board with Wade Henshaw. He's just cruising along here, obviously cooling down. The hardest thing when you've come from a restart is actually getting back on the pace, getting that pulse up, if you like, and getting back on the gun again.
Well, Wade Henshaw's in a bit of a tricky position. The team looks relaxed. When you talk to him he looks relaxed, but currently, as we work it out, he needs to finish 5th or better if Andy Booth is going to win this race and the race that follows. Now, that's a hard ask for Booth to win the second one, because that is a top 10 reverse grid. Okay, safety car lights are out, and Booth is definitely doing the run, and now this is back. Green flag racing, and the pressure is going to be on second place as Kane Scott picks up a challenge from John McIntyre as they come down across the start-finish line. There's McIntyre diving to the left, has to tuck in behind the Super Chief Commodore though.
Well, it looked like Kane Scott got caught napping there over the top of the hill, and McIntyre just about got through there on the inside.
Yeah, well, Kane Scott is very, very quick at Pukekohe, and he always has been. Ooh, bit of movement there. Mark Pedersen's car just getting off the edge of the track slightly. Here's McIntyre's view of things as they head towards the kink down the back straight at Pukekohe.
Yes, pulling up to 240 kilometres an hour here, just on the rev limiter, 6,400 revs in 4th gear.
Now he tries to go around the outside of Scott as they come down into the braking area. That's not going to work, but he'll try to come back inside. Well, you can see he's pretty busy there as he got back on the power. Meantime, our race leader is getting away from these guys.
Well, we see it every time the safety car comes out, it groups the field up, and it gets that even more so exciting for the crowd on the bank here.
There's some good battles going on here, one of them involving Wade Henshaw, the man in 6th place. But John McIntyre really trying to move up the order on Kane Scott. Really, John is hardly in contention for this championship. To win it, he would have to have something. Ooh, great effects there from our curb cam as the cars go blitzing across the top of it. They really cut across the top of that left-hand S's.
Just see up in front there, Andy Booth just getting it totally crossed up coming onto the back straight. He really is pulling out that lead though. I mean, he's really got the car set up loose and actually doing it oh so well. Look at this gap he's pulled.
Yeah, it's 1.3 seconds in actuality, and you can see what it is for yourself visually. Fights going on further back. Wade Henshaw staying close. McIntyre feinting again around the outside of Scott. Will try inside again, and Mark Pedersen hoping that these two are going to get together so he can move on through.
Well, it's looking a little bit pedestrian at this point of the race. I mean, Wade Henshaw sitting back there in 6th place. He'll be just counting down the time at this point.
Across the top of the Ford Mountain again. And the Ford in this picture is the John McIntyre car we're travelling on board with. This time maybe he's got it. No, not far enough through. That's where he's going to try it again. This is lap 9 out of the 10 laps. So this fight's going to go all the way to the checkered flag, I think. Wade Henshaw, meantime, is in that 5th place that he needs to be in. He's gone ahead of Angus Fogg for 5th place. So this is good for him. Andy Booth doing everything that he has to do to make this championship stay alive.
Johnny McIntyre just getting onto the back there, getting a good draft out there. He'll pull out to the outside here, take the high line into the hairpin, and hoping that he can cut back down the inside. Let's just see if he can do it.
Great pictures from the John McIntyre on board as he looks across at Kane Scott, or it does anyway. No, he can't quite pull that inside-outside move, and he has to settle in again behind the Super Chief car. Here's the replay down at Placemakers S's, and the action is here. Yes, someone's already gone in hard. That is that Darren Henderson, your friend Greg, out of Wellington.
Well, Darren is a rookie year in the radio sport car, ex-mountain bike rider, and really doing it hard this season.
So the message is the guys are just starting the last lap, and you can see that John McIntyre has been passed by Mark Pedersen, taking the 3rd place back again. So that's a great battle. So McIntyre shuffled back down the order again. Oh, is this Henshaw's in trouble on the back straight?
Looked like they had it coming together there with fog.
Well, this is not what he needs to be doing. He really has to stay right out of trouble. He definitely cannot afford a DNF with Andy Booth in the form that he's in. Sure, there's a points break, 53 points Wade Henshaw has on Andy Booth in the championship. But if I was him, he's just going to let Fogg go and settle for that 6th place. That is going to be worth it. He definitely does not want to get tangled up with anybody. Paul Manuel, Booth's teammate, looming up behind. But up ahead, Andy Booth is going to take this one out. Should be the checkered flag as he comes through. So Andy Booth doing everything. 2 wins in these 2 races so far here at this Placemakers V8 International. In the 2nd place, Kane Scott. Then Mark Pedersen, Johnny McIntyre forced back to the 4th place.
Angus Fogg will come in 5th and Wade Henshaw in 6th place.
Yes, I see Paul Manuel, Andy Anderson, Perkins and Shane Drake rounding up the top 10. Mike Perro looking on. He's back in the pit lane after his car stopped, but he's going to be well pleased with seeing that Henshaw survived that little scrape on the last lap.
Confirming win 2 for the weekend for Andy Booth then, ahead of Kane Scott with Mark Pedersen in 3rd place. Then it's John McIntyre, Angus Fogg and Wade Henshaw up to 6th place. In 7th, it's Paul Manuel ahead of Andy Anderson with Dean Perkins 9th, Shane Drake 10th, Brady Kennett 11th and Michael Tom 12th.